Hello, welcome back to VID-O-RAMA, where we remember the VHS releases of the past in graphic detail. My name's Aaron Jones and I'm an artist, and each month on this channel I paint a tribute to a movie that we rented on video back in the day. Now this month's movie has been selected by one of my kind Patreon supporters, Mr. Alex Taylor, who chose David Cronenberg's remake of The Fly, released in 1986, starring Jeff Goldblum and Gina Davis. As you can see, I prepared the drawing beforehand, and it's all set for painting. Now I'll put my hand up and admit I'm a huge fan of the original movie. In fact, it's one of my all-time favourite movies. But I'm equally fond of the remake. Is it because it's so different? I don't know, but much like the other movies that were remade in the 80s, like The Thing and The Blob, I'm somehow able to detach and treat them both as separate movies. But whatever the reason, Alex wants a tribute to The Fly from 1986, and that's what he's going to get. Colours today are titanium white, Mars black, lime green and cadmium orange. Acrylic paint is used for the majority of the colour, but I use pens to apply the detail. I'm going to start off with grey. In order to get a smooth surface texture, I use my finger to apply the background colour. And I simply do this because a scanner will sometimes pick up lumps of paint. If this is your first time with us, welcome. I'll explain my process. I firstly rewatch the movie and make various notes and sketches as I go along. Then once I have the image completed, I then transfer the sketch onto thin card for painting. Just in case you haven't seen the movie, it's about a science journalist called Veronica Quaife who, while looking for a story, meets an eccentric scientist called Seth Brundle, who invites her back to his lab to see his latest invention, teleportation pods. These pods can teleport inanimate objects across a room, but not living matter, and as Seth tries to figure out why his machine turns baboons inside out, he develops a relationship with Veronica. One evening, while drunk, Brundle teleports himself, unaware that a housefly had entered the teleporter pod with him, and at first he believes the experiment was a success. But when he becomes hyperactive, starts developing sores and coarse hairs on his body, and a craving for sugar, it becomes apparent that something went wrong. His invention has spliced his genes with the fly. Forced to watch the man she loves lose his humanity, along with various body parts, Veronica discovers that she is pregnant and understandably becomes concerned that the baby will take after its father. I'd be surprised if you haven't already seen this. It's a terrific film, science fiction horror at its finest. Stellar performances and amazing effects used by Cronenberg to tell what is essentially a love story in his own unique way. Although released in 1986, The Fly goes further back to 1957, when writer George Langeland broke with tradition and wrote a short sci-fi horror thriller instead of the usual espionage stories. The story, entitled The Fly, was published in the June edition of Playboy, and it was seen by movie producer and director Kurt Newman, who had previously directed Rocket Ship XM, Kronos and The She-Devil. Newman showed The Fly short story to Robert Lippert, head of 20th Century Fox's B-movie studio Regal Pictures, and he gave the project the green light. The movie, which starred David Hedison, Patricia Owens and of course Vincent Price, went on to receive an official release by Fox in 1958, going on to be a huge success and one of the most iconic sci-fi horrors in cinema, making us all uneasy with the concept of teleportation and giving us the chills when we hear someone say, "Help me." The movie went on to spawn a sequel, The Return of the Fly, again starring Vincent Price, which was released the following year, and then a third instalment called The Curse of the Fly in 1965. But by the 1980s, movie producer Stuart Cornfeld, who had served as an executive producer on The Elephant Man and co-producer on National Lampoon's European Vacation, believed that a Fly remake was long overdue, and he believed that screenwriter Charles Edward Pogue, who had previously written a screenplay for The Hound of the Baskervilles and The Sign of 4 in 1983, would be perfect for the job. Cornfeld presented Pogue with the original short story, which he read before watching the original movie for the first time, and he agreed to join the project. Fox were interested in bringing the Fly franchise back and commissioned a screenplay from Pogue. However, When they reviewed the script, they didn't like it and expressed a reluctance to release the movie rights to them. But Kornfeld kept at them until they eventually agreed to distribute the movie, but only on the understanding that Kornfeld secured the financing elsewhere. And so he took the script to fellow Elephant Man executive producer Mel Brooks, who agreed to help out, but only if they rewrote the script. First choice to direct was David Cronenberg. Cronenberg had firmly established himself within cinema at this point with such films as Shivers, Rabid, The Brood, Scanners, Videodrome and The Dead Zone, and he was defining the body horror genre. However, he was working on Dino De Laurentiis' Total Recall movie at this time and so was unavailable. So Robert Bierman was offered the opportunity to direct instead. Sadly, during pre-production, Robert Bierman's daughter was killed in a tragic accident in South Africa, and so the project was suspended for several months. Fearing that he wasn't in the right frame of mind to do the picture justice, Bierman decided to bow out of the project completely. But at this point, Cronenberg had left the Total Recall project and was available, and so Mel Brooks sent him the script. Although Cronenberg felt the script had some interesting ideas, he was less impressed with the characters, dialogue and structure of the story, and so he agreed to direct the movie, but only if he could rewrite it. Brooks agreed and told him to go all out and not hold anything back. It's often said that the transformation in this movie is a metaphor for dying from disease, specifically AIDS. However, Cronenberg has stated that this was not his intention. In fact, he saw it as a metaphor for growing old, the gradual deterioration of the body, and then death. Various actors were offered the role of Seth Brundle, including John Lithgow, who, despite his agent's insistence, turned it down. Lithgow didn't want to play something grotesque and found the story to be icky. Cronenberg believed that it was the challenge of having to work in a rubber suit that put most actors off, but one man was very much up for the challenge, the legend that is Mr. Jeff Goldblum. Goldblum had been an actor since the age of 17, making his Broadway debut in 1971 with Two Gentlemen of Verona. He went on to have his movie debut in 1974 as one of the three thugs in Charles Bronson's Death Wish movie, and his television debut was in 1975 as an uncredited protester in the episode of Columbo called A Case of Immunity. The Fly wouldn't be his first 50s sci-fi horror remake, as he had of course appeared in the remake of Invasion of the Body Snatchers in 1978. Goldblum was not only impressed with the script and excited at the prospect of working with Cronenberg, he also loved the original movie, and this reminded him of the times he had spent at the Leona Theatre in Pittsburgh. These visits to the cinema fueled his fascination for movie monsters, and one of the earliest he saw was I Was a Teenage Werewolf, released in 1957. Seeing Michael Landon transform into a werewolf stayed with him, so much so that he saw The Fly as his chance to go through a similar on-screen transformation, and so he welcomed the rubber suit. Goldblum owns this movie, he was so good in it. Another of the movie's strengths, and you won't hear me say this very often, is the movie's love story. Gina Davis felt the same way. She said that underneath all the sticky things, as she put it, there was an intense, powerful love story, and I agree. There is a chemistry between the two of them, and this is because Davis and Goldblum were in fact dating at the time, having met on the set of Transylvania 65000. I love this creature. I was somewhat obsessed with it in my youth. I used to sketch the design again and again. Chris Wallace was responsible for the movie's effects. I've covered his career in more detail in my Gremlins tributes. Everyone wanted this film to be more than a simple head swap movie. They wanted the transformation to be gradual, and Cronenberg wanted the Brundle character to be articulate and relay what he was experiencing. Wallace told issue 58 of Fangoria magazine that Brundle was to go through 7 stages of transformation, seeing the process like an insect shedding its cocoon. They wanted to keep as much of Goldblum on screen as possible before reverting to Brundlefly's final form, which they dubbed the Space Bug. The eyes on the puppet that they made had to be expressive to compensate for the fact that Brundle would not be able to speak at this phase of the transformation. I've tried to convey the sadness in his eyes in this drawing. When The Fly was released theatrically in 1986, it was the top grossing film in the US for 2 weeks. It both made money and received critical acclaim, and no one was more surprised by this response than Cronenberg himself. It still remains the biggest commercial success of his career. The Fly is the only Cronenberg movie to receive an Academy Award nomination. Both Chris Wallace and Stéphane Dupuis were nominated and awarded the Oscar for Best Makeup. During their acceptance speech they acknowledged Jeff Goldblum's work, and he really should have received a nomination at the very least. I mentioned how Jeff Goldblum was a fan of the original movie, and apparently he wrote to Vincent Price when the movie was released, telling him, "I hope you like it as much as I like yours." Price, although touched by the letter and ever the gentleman, told him that he believed the movie to be wonderful, but admitted that he felt it went a little too far. Goldblum and Geena Davis would marry in 1987 and would star together one last time in Earth Girls Are Easy in 1988, before divorcing in 1991. As for the franchise, naturally with such a big hit there had to be a sequel, and The Fly 2 was released in 1989. Goldblum appeared in it as stock footage, and Davis turned down the opportunity to reprise her role. John Getz was the only actor to return for the sequel, in fact. Opinions vary on Fly 2, but I rather like it, but that's a story for another day. But after all these years, The Fly continues to impress, giving us a high standard of acting and practical effects, and it's been a real pleasure adding it to the channel. Hope you like it, Alex. Many thanks for supporting the project. You know, I was just thinking, it's almost 4 years now since I started this project, and despite how it might all seem, this can be quite a slow and time-consuming process. I'll never get rich doing it, but I love doing it. I love painting, and I love sharing the movies that I love with you, and I'm able to discuss these movies with people from around the globe. And in some instances I've been able to be in contact with people who were directly involved in the making of the movies themselves. YouTube's algorithms are not kind to my channel. High viewing figures continue to elude me. But is it because I refuse to follow trends that I only produce content based on something that I'm passionate about? And I don't produce videos as often as YouTube would like because I don't want to skimp on the quality. But it's quite daunting and unpredictable, but rest assured I will keep doing it for as long as I can because it makes me happy. And if you have found this video and you have derived a grain of pleasure or entertainment from it, then that has to count for something, doesn't it? So if you have liked my videos, if you have commented, if you have shared it or promoted it in some way with your friends, or supported me on Patreon like Alex, then I'm very grateful to you. Anyway, I was going to sign this, wasn't I? Thank you for joining me today and keeping me company. As ever, I hope that was of interest to you and you approve of the final painting. If so, please let me know in the comments. And don't forget to click that subscribe button. Well, a big thank you to Alex for not only supporting the channel but for also picking this month's video and giving me the excuse I needed to paint a tribute to The Fly. If you would like to follow Alex's example and become a VID-O-RAMA Video Club member, you will find a link in the description to the Patreon page. And by joining that, you too can pick which movie features in future videos. You also get badges, stickers, monthly hand-drawn sketch cards sent out to you, and a Patreon-only print. All the information down below. Right, well, dear viewer, you had the entire internet at your fingertips and you chose to spend some time with me. And for that, I am very grateful to you. Thank you for supporting me, my work, and the channel. But until next time, good night out there, whatever you are.